All right, welcome back, everyone. First alert mode for Tuesday and Wednesday, due in part because of the heat that's out there. Everybody's dealing with the heat, except if you're out towards the coast. We got some much more comfortable air out that way. But we're also dealing with the elevated fire risk as the heat stats around definitely going to dry things out. We got more dry vegetation, soil, and things of that matter. And then also to go along with that, we got the concerns about some of the wildfires that are out there and the wildfire smoke coming from them, not only just from ours here into the state of Washington, but also from outside of there as you go up across more of BC. Now, wanted to show you a satellite imagery because this is where we are noticing a lot more of that smoke haze in our skies. And you can see as you go off towards the east here that you're definitely seeing a lot more of that smoke haze in place. Let's actually go back to that and show you how that's shaping up for us here over that way. You're noticing more of the clouds that are in place for areas across more of eastern and southeastern Washington, down into Oregon too. That's the bright white colors that you're noticing right there moving on through. And also seeing that across some of our skies, that's moving rather nicely. A pretty good airflow with that. But what you're also seeing too is this milky shading that is popping up. Hold on, wrong one here. This milky shading that's popping up here for areas across more of eastern Washington. And it's in some of these areas that we've been dealing with some of the poor air quality and more of that smoke haze that's been across our skies. We've also seen it here into western Washington too, and so that's been included in our skies, and it's up across more of northeast. Northeast interior that we're going to keep an eye out for some of the worst air quality up there with this, because we are expecting with that to be the case that we could be dealing with a little more of an airflow that comes out of the north and east and helps to reduce a bit more of that flow out of British Columbia, which some of the fires up there could create a little more of an issue when it comes to our air quality. So more smoke expected up that way. And as we time this out for you, you can see to the remainder of today, we continue to have, for all areas here closer to the surface, a bit more of that smoke popping up. Now, it's not heavy, it's not dense, but you see a lot more of that across the eastern side of the state. That's indicated by some of the oranges and even the reds and the purples. But it's getting to a point where at least some of us are getting a whiff of smoke from time to time. And with the wind flow becoming a bit more westerly as we head on into the day tomorrow, especially as we head into tomorrow evening, tomorrow night, a lot of that will help to usher out the thickest and the densest smoke out of our area. And then you can see it really starts to get confined to areas where we have some of those fires here across more of eastern Washington. And that is going to be what's really going to be maybe allowing some of those spots to pick up a bit more on some of the dense and heavy smoke. So as that's moving on through here, do keep in mind that we will have to worry about some poor air quality in those locations and some stronger winds too, while us here west of the Cascades are starting to see things improve. You can see it's not completely out of the area yet, but definitely an improvement, and seeing some improving conditions out that way towards more of eastern Washington as we head on to that point as well for your day on Thursday, as we see a lot more blue popping up as opposed to those oranges and those reds and those purples. Now, that's near the surface. We've been seeing a lot of haze across our skies, and that's been because of what we've been seeing in the upper parts of the atmosphere, aloft for our region, and that is going to be hanging with us as we go throughout the remainder of the day. You can see another plume trying to find its way in from the south and working its way north and eastward here as we head on into the earlier part of the day for tomorrow. And then that finds its way on off towards the east, towards the second half of the day on Wednesday, and then that's when things will improve into western Washington. With that being the case, currently, moderate air quality for areas farther south around more Puget Sound, and then also moderate air quality up here where we have the air quality alerts into Skagit and Whatcom counties. And what we're expecting as far as the forecast heading into the day tomorrow, this is Wednesday, you can see that porous air quality is expected to be across more of those spots here where we have those air quality alerts. So we're really going to focus in on those areas to make sure that we are not dealing with too poor of air quality. Thankfully, we're not getting too unhealthy for all groups or very unhealthy air quality yet here across the region. But if there was a point where we probably saw little wind and all that kind of came together and condensed, then you would be worrying about a situation, at least briefly, when it comes to that. And you also see, too, as that wind is beginning to pick up and push that smoke on off towards the east, that it does eventually bank up across more of the Cascades. And so for some of the higher terrain, it could become unhealthy for sensitive groups, again, across some of those parts before it's eventually able to work its way off towards the east. All right, so for the rest of today, we're expecting to see things stay hazy and hot, and tomorrow we do it all over again as heat advisories are still with us until late Wednesday night. Highs tomorrow in a lot of spots are going to be back into the 90s, and then we'll start to see things begin to weaken a little bit as far as the heat as we go later on into Thursday and into the weekend. All right, let's take a look at some of the hazy skies that we have up here around Paradise. I've been noticing bluer skies earlier here into the summer, and just not the case here for today. Again, that smoke haze is there. You can kind of see it here in our Bellingham camera as well. And then looking at our Port Angeles camera, some blue popping up, but also noticing a little more of that cloud coverage and a little haze showing up in the sky. Now, this is definitely where you're going to see it. Skies are, for the most part, clear. And here looking at Tacoma, where you would typically see Mount Rainier off into the distance, right about there, it is nowhere to be seen. Completely blocked out by the smoke haze. And kind of a similar story for us here, too, around Seattle, as currently temperatures are in the mid-80s, and those hazy skies going to be with us here into the night. Clear skies, though, enough that we're going to cool down and try to get some relief on the way as far as the heat is concerned. So the system's going to be moving its way on through, and before we're seeing that finding its way on through here later on into the week, we're still going to be dealing with some poor air quality for areas farther to the north, and that air quality alert we mentioned to you before is with us until 9 o'clock heading into early Wednesday morning. So we'll still deal with it here for a little while before things do start to improve on that front, but things will definitely become a bit better. Now, let's talk about the winds and see how that's going to help to usher this on out of here. And you can see that over the next few hours heading into the evening and throughout the overnight, there's not much wind out there. I mean, the highest wind we get up to is maybe around 15 miles per hour, and that's up through the Strait of Juan Fuca. That's going to be for those areas through parts of the Admiralty Inlet. We're talking Camino Whidbey Island too. We're not really going to be dealing with much as far as a poor air quality at this point, due in part because we'll keep that nice airflow going, and also where we're not going to be seeing as much of the heat in place there. So we're going to need a little more wind to pick up before things do change with that, and that does look to happen here as we go later on into the night on Wednesday and into more of the day on Thursday. As you can see, the winds, they do start to pick up here into Wednesday evening at 5 o'clock, and then continuing on throughout more of early Thursday morning. We're starting to get some of those gusts picking up, but another thing I wanted to point out too, that's not going to be the greatest of news for some of the fires across eastern Washington. You get stronger winds that are more of a downsloping wind over there. You're talking about a drying air mass that will maybe help to fan some of the flames over there. So hopefully we can do as much as possible. The officials and those who are working on some of the fires over there can do as much as possible to try to get those under control before things do get a little more out of hand with the weather conditions and the winds over there and the dry air that's going to be coming along with it. But for those of us here west of the Cascades, this westerly wind is going to be great news because it's going to bring in the cool down and it's going to bring in air mass that will be a lot more damp, a lot more moist, and at some point, too, might even help to bring in some better rain chances. Now, we might see some heading into the day on Thursday, and I mean more so early Thursday, but you can see by the time we're heading on into Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening, that westerly and southwesterly wind is helping to draw up a bit more of that cooler air from off of the coast, and that's definitely going to cool us down as we head on into that point, and we'll keep things considerably cooler as we head on towards the second half of the work week. And as we go on into the weekend, well, thankfully it looks like winds will finally start to die down, at least hopefully a little bit across the eastern part of the state, but it's going to take a little while before that does so. And so with that being the case, we're going to be dealing with a little more of this heat. All right, so the heat itself, let's talk about how that's going to be sticking around for us and how things will be changing, because this heat that we're dealing with right now, it's not going to be too long-lived. We have highs today that have found their way up around more the upper 80s, lower to mid-90s in a few spots. And we do it again heading into Wednesday. Yeah, we still have to deal with the heat here, so it's more of a near-term issue for us. But then behind that, you can see the average high is at 79. We get down to that mark heading into the day of Thursday. And then our high starts to bounce up a little bit on Thursday or Friday, getting up to 82. Then we really start to drop it. If this is what you're looking for some relief, here we go. I think this is going to be the forecast that you really enjoy. We drop down to 73 on Saturday. You can see Sunday, we're going to see that high stay closer to about the mid-70s at 75 degrees. And then continuing on here, this is going to be looking out even further as we go throughout pretty much the majority of next work week. We're going to see a lot of those afternoon highs, mainly in the 70s, and not only just in the 70s, but below the average of 79. And so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, all looking to bring highs That will be below the seasonal average of 79 degrees. So a very comfortable air mass heading on into the very end of the month of July here on the 31st, as things are looking to be quite a bit nicer for us and a lot more comfortable after we get done with this current short and brief heat wave that we're going to be dealing with. And it's not only just some of those afternoon highs that are expected to be a lot more comfortable, it's the overnight lows that are on the way that will begin to cool down. After seeing some of those here in the 60s over the next couple of nights, because that air mass is still going to be warm, we're still going to be holding on to quite a bit of it here during some of the overnight hours. We'll see our numbers start to drop back closer to that average low of 58. And if the numbers can pop up from behind the bars right here, I'll show you. But we drop down to 60 on Friday. There they are. And then you can see for Saturday and Sunday, we'll drop those numbers back into the 50s, near and below average. And that's something that we're going to be dealing with a lot more of here as we head on into this latter part of the work week and heading on into the upcoming weekend, which things look to be very nice and comfortable yet again for. So if you can just hold off and you can just find a way to stay cool here for the next couple of days, day and a half, it's not going to be too much longer. You'll get your relief on the way. And let me just show you one more thing here before we get ready to finish on up. The Mariners, they're in town, and so if you have any plans on maybe heading out to these games for later this evening for Tuesday night or into the day on Wednesday, which that one looks to be more of a matinee matchup right there. You can see the heat's going to be with us. Later this evening, still at 87 degrees, even after dealing with the hot temperatures here throughout the afternoon. So some high clouds around for us and a bit more of that smoke haze, but our numbers do start to cool here into the night, and at least for the overnight hours in that game tonight, the temperatures will be cooling as opposed to what we're going to see heading on into the day Wednesday, where temperatures will be climbing, starting off more so around those low to mid 80s, and then eventually climbing up to around the 90-degree mark by the end of the game, as we deal with a lot more sunshine and some smoke haze in the skies, but things will start to clear out a little more. And then they have the off day heading into the day on Thursday, as we see that chance of a spotty shower or a storm that will roll on through, cooling down substantially as highs will find their way back down into more of the upper 70s to more of the lower 80s. All right, let's take a look, everyone, at your forecast here as we head on into the night. Overnight lows should drop down generally into the low 60s and upper 50s for most spots. It's just out that way towards the coast that we have a little more relief with that air mass coming off of the water. That's going to bring us down into more of the mid-50s for the overnight lows. Check out those numbers, too, east of the Cascades. Only 72 and 74, Wenatchee and Leavenworth. Whew, that is going to be quite toasty and just uncomfortable during the overnight hours. And then highs heading on into the day for Wednesday. Still really hot for many of us here around parts of Central and South Sound and over the Kitsap Peninsula and through the Chehalis Valley. That's where you see some of the 90s. You have numbers popping up in the 100-degree territory for Leavenworth, Wenatchee, and in Yakima. Going to be really hot there. And your forecast here, next 7-day stretch, still looking like we're going to be dealing with a lot more of that heat for a lot of the area. And we'll see the temperatures eventually cool down, but we'll have one more first alert day heading into Wednesday, as highs will stay in the 90s. So we just can't stress it enough, everyone. Try to stay as cool as possible. And if you have any sort of extra sensitivity to the poor air quality, try to stay inside as much as possible and prepare for that. All right, take care, everyone. Be safe, and we'll keep you updated here on King 5 and King 5 Plus.